The promise in the dust. Smoke covered the battlefield. The air smelled like burnt metal and ash. Fires burned between broken ships and shattered armor. It had been a war zone only hours ago, and now it was silent. Sergeant Cole Mathis walked carefully across the ruins, scanning the ground with his visor. His team had already pulled out, but he had stayed behind for one last sweep. He didn't know why. Something inside him said, "Don't leave yet." The ruined world beneath his boots was called Valen III, a once beautiful alien colony turned graveyard. A brutal invasion had wiped out the native population. The attackers were gone now, scattered, defeated, but the damage was done. As Cole moved closer to a collapsed tower, he heard it. A sound, soft, a whisper. He paused and raised his rifle. "Hello?" he called. No answer. Then again, this time clearer. "Help. Me." He followed the voice into the ruins, climbing over rubble and broken glass. At the base of the fallen tower, he saw a broken hatch barely open. Inside, a hand reached out, small, silver-skinned, trembling. Cole dropped to his knees. He forced the hatch wider. Beneath the rubble, curled and half-buried, was a young alien girl. She looked no older than 17 in human years. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly with golden lines like circuits. Her eyes, wide violet and full of fear, locked onto his. She wasn't a soldier. She was barely alive. "Stay still," Cole said, setting his weapon down. "I'll get you out." "No," she whispered. "Don't. Please. Don't touch me." "You're hurt," he said. "You need help." She coughed. "If you pull me free, you'll have to finish it." Cole frowned. "Finish what?" She closed her eyes. Weak. "The bond." Cole didn't understand. He looked at her, leg pinned under steel. Carefully, he lifted the metal beam and pulled her into his arms. She cried out in pain but didn't fight him. He carried her out of the hatch and laid her gently on the ground. Her breath was shallow. Her skin was cold. "I need to get you to a medic," he said, but she grabbed his wrist. Tight, desperate. "Promise me," she said. "You'll finish it." "What does that mean?" "Promise." Cole stared into her eyes. He didn't know her. He didn't know what it was. But in that moment, surrounded by silence, destruction, and dust, he nodded. "I promise." The girl exhaled, her body relaxing. And then something strange happened. A soft light passed from her hand into his skin. It didn't burn. It didn't hurt. But a glowing mark appeared on his palm. A small symbol, like a spiral inside a triangle. The girl whispered one more time. "You don't know what they'll make you do." Then she passed out. Cole stood there in the dust, holding her carefully, heart pounding. He looked at the mark on his hand. It was still glowing. Faint, but real. He didn't know what it meant, but he had made a promise. And humans, real humans, always keep their word. Later that night, the medical bay on the orbiting ship was quiet. Cole sat beside the girl's bed. She was stable, sleeping. The doctor said she would live, but they couldn't explain the symbol. It wouldn't wash off, it wouldn't scan. The medic shrugged and said, "Maybe it's cultural." But Cole knew it was something else. He leaned forward and looked at the girl's face. Her name was still unknown. Her species wasn't in the records, but she had begged him for something, and he had said yes. Above them, the stars of Valen III shone through the ship's glass dome. Cole whispered to himself, "I don't care what it costs. I gave her my word." And somewhere in the dark, unseen by all, the mark on his palm glowed just a little brighter, as if the universe had just witnessed something very old and very dangerous. Wake up again. The lights in the medbay flickered, softly. Sergeant Cole sat alone in the chair beside the recovery bed, watching the alien girl breathe. Machines beeped quietly, reading her vitals. Her skin glowed faintly under the dim lights, blue, smooth, almost glass-like, and traced with golden veins. It had been 16 hours since he pulled her from the rubble. 16 hours since he made a promise. 16 hours since the mark appeared on his palm. He looked at the symbol again. It was still there. Not a scar. Not a tattoo. Something more. Something living. It pulsed slowly with his heartbeat, like it was waiting. A soft sound broke the silence. Cole looked up. The girl was waking. Her fingers twitched. Her violet eyes opened slowly, blinking at the ceiling. She turned her head and locked eyes with him again. But this time there was no fear, only recognition. "You're still here," she whispered. Her voice was weak but clear. "Yeah," Cole said quietly. "I said I would be." She looked down at her hands. "You saved me." "I had to," he replied. "You asked." She turned away slightly. "I begged you not to." He paused. "And I still said yes." There was silence between them for a long moment. Then she spoke again. "My name is Viraya." Cole leaned forward. "Viraya," he repeated. "That's beautiful." She blinked slowly. "It means last leaf. My mother gave it to me before they erased her." Cole's voice was soft. "I'm sorry." "I'm not," she said. "I still have the name." She slowly tried to sit up. He helped her gently. Her body was light. Too light, like it wasn't made for gravity. "I'm not like you," she said. "I noticed," he replied, smiling slightly. She didn't return it. "My kind. We're taught never to ask for help, it's a weakness." But I was weak. Cole shook his head. "No. You were dying. You survived." She looked at him again. "You didn't ask what it meant. The promise." "I figured I'd find out eventually," he said. Viraya stared at the glowing mark on his hand. "You already have." In the next room, the doctors watched from behind glass. One of them whispered to another, "She's linked to him. The scans show shared neural patterns, emotional sync. That's not science, that's ancient tech or something older. What kind of species can do that without machines?" No one had an answer. Back inside, Viraya placed her hand over the mark on Cole's palm. "It's called the thread," she whispered. "My people believe in truth through bond. Not papers, not words. A promise isn't spoken. It's carried." "Carried how?" Cole asked. "Through the thread. It links your life to mine. One pulls, the other follows." He frowned. "I didn't agree to that." "You did when you said, 'I promise.'" Cole sat back. He wanted to argue, but deep down something told him it was real. He could feel her, not in his mind, in his chest, like a second heartbeat. Viraya looked down. "My people are gone. My home is ash. The only thing left of our history is in the Forbidden Gate." "The what?" She shook her head. "Not yet. You'll know soon." "Why me?" "Because you said you would." Cole didn't understand everything, but he saw the look in her eyes. Heavy. Old. Not the look of a young girl. The look of someone who had lived with a truth too big to carry alone. He gently placed a hand over hers. "I don't care what it is." "I made you a promise," Viraya flinched. "Don't say it again." "Why?" "Because every time you say it, the thread grows stronger." He nodded. "Then let it grow." For the first time, her expression changed. Not a smile, but something close. Something warm. Something almost human. Outside, deep in the far edge of space, something ancient stirred. Far from sensors, far from charts, it opened a single eye, glowing, with the same spiral shape now carved into Cole's hand. The thread had awakened, and soon it would pull them all toward the truth Viraya feared the most. The key to the Forbidden Gate. The stars outside the window blinked like cold fireflies. Cole sat in the ship's observation deck, staring at the glowing mark on his palm. It hadn't faded. It hadn't changed. It was still pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. Varela stood behind him quiet. She didn't speak at first, just watched him. Then she said, "You felt it, haven't you?" He nodded. "It's not just on my skin, it's inside me now." Varela stepped closer. "The thread was made long before my people ever touched machines. It's living code. Once it links, it remembers." "Remembers what?" Cole asked. She sat beside him. "It remembers pain. It remembers duty. It remembers the one who swore to carry the end." Cole frowned. "What end?" Varela looked down. "The gate." They were on their way now. Varela had asked the captain to reroute the ship, not to Earth, not to any station, but to an old red world no one had visited in hundreds of years. Elisara. In human records, it was just a dead planet. But to Varela, it was sacred. She showed Cole a small sphere from her belt, a silver orb that pulsed when it got close to his hand. "This is the gate's callstone," she said. "It only works when the thread has been joined." He stared at it. "What's the gate?" She turned to him. "It's what my people built when we gave up on war." Varela walked him to the hollow chamber. With a wave of her hand, light filled the room, showing a tall black structure standing in the middle of an empty desert. The Forbidden Gate. It wasn't made of metal. It was made of something else, smooth, shifting like glass but alive with light. Cole stepped closer. "It's beautiful." "It's dangerous," she whispered. "It can heal a world or end one." She told him the truth. Her people had once been warriors, great and feared, but their wars had led to ruin. To stop their own extinction, they created the gate, not as a weapon, but as a judge. It would activate only when two life forms joined by the thread approached together, one from her kind and one from another. It would then ask one question, just one, and the answer would decide the future of whoever stood before it. Cole was quiet. He looked at the projection again. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because once you know," she said softly, "you can't walk away." He turned toward her. "You said I had to finish it. Was this it? Going to the gate?" Varela's voice was low. "No. Going is only the beginning. Finishing it means answering." Later in his quarters, Cole sat on the floor with his head in his hands. He had saved a girl, made a promise. Now he was on a ship heading toward a device that could decide the fate of an entire species. He looked at his hand. Still glowing. Still warm. Still waiting. Varela knocked gently before entering. She sat across from him. "I know what you're feeling." "Do you?" he asked. "I was born with this duty. You walked into it by accident." "But I stayed on purpose," he said. "That matters, doesn't it?" Varela looked into his eyes. "Yes, it does." She reached forward and touched the mark on his palm. Their hands glowed together. For a moment, Cole saw something, flashes of her memories, her planet in flames, her mother's voice, a room of elders whispering in fear. And then, Varela standing alone before the gate, whispering, "I'm not ready." He pulled back, breathing fast. "That was real?" She nodded. "I fled from it. I broke the bond with my first threadbearer. I left them behind. I let the gate close. And now?" She stared at him. "Now, I don't want to run." As the ship neared the red world of Elisara, the crew grew, uneasy. Strange readings began to appear. Energy pulses, time disruptions, whispers in the comms, and always. The mark on Cole's hand glowed brighter. The thread was pulling them closer. In the final scene, Cole and Varela stand at the front of the ship, watching the desert planet below. The gate waits in silence, and Varela whispers, "When we reach it, it will speak. And when it speaks, we must answer, even if it breaks us." The Human Code. The ship touched down on Elisera at dawn. The sky was dark red. The wind was silent. And in the far distance, half buried in sand, stood the forbidden gate. It didn't glow, it didn't move, but it felt alive, as if it had been watching, waiting. Varela stood at the open ramp, staring at the massive structure. "I haven't been here since I was a child," she said. Cole stepped beside her. "Were you afraid then too?" She nodded. "More than I am now." He looked at her carefully. "Why bring me here if it hurt you so much?" Varela didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "Because I don't want to face it alone this time." They walked together across the sands. The gate grew larger with every step, its surface, smooth, black, and mirror-like. No doors, no seams. Just a tall, silent wall standing in the middle of nowhere. Cole could feel the thread now, humming in his chest like a low, steady drumbeat. It was leading them, calling them. When they were just a few feet from the gate, Varela stopped. "This is where it happens," she said. "What?" "The question." Cole tilted his head. "What question?" She turned to him, her eyes full of pain. "It will ask you if you're willing to complete the promise. And if you say yes, someone must die." Cole froze. His mouth went dry. He stared at her. "You mean me?" "No," she said quietly. "Me." The wind moved gently between them. The desert was silent. Cole's voice came out low. "That's what this was always about?" Varela nodded. "My people were once warriors. We destroyed too much. The gate was our way to stop ourselves. We built, and with a final command, a choice." She stepped closer. "If someone from another species joins the thread and chooses peace, then my bloodline ends." Cole was shaking. "You didn't tell me." "You wouldn't have saved me if I did." He clenched his fists. "I still would have." She looked away. "I didn't want to believe that." They sat on the sand. No words for a while. Just the wind. Just the heavy sky. Then Varela asked, "What do humans do when a promise hurts?" Cole looked up slowly. "We keep it anyway." She closed her eyes. "My people never understood that. To us, promises are law. Logic, duty, order. But humans, you make promises with your heart?" He nodded. "Sometimes it's the only thing we have," Varela whispered. "I wish I had been born human." "You're more human than you think." She smiled sadly. "I'm afraid, but not of death." He asked gently. "Then what?" "Of being forgotten," she said. "Of this being the only thing anyone remembers about me. That I was the girl who died because someone kept their word." Cole shook his head. "No," he said. "If this ends with you gone, I'll make sure they remember the whole story. The girl who trusted a human. The girl who didn't run. The girl who stood in front of the gate and chose peace." Suddenly, the ground trembled. The gate awakened. Light ran through its surface in thin silver lines. Shapes moved like waves across the wall. Then, silence. A deep voice, calm and ancient, echoed in the air. Thread confirmed. One of Virey's line. One of Earth's kind. "Do you seek to finish what was started?" Cole looked at Varela. She nodded slowly. He stepped forward. "Yes." The gate's light brightened. Then came the question. "Will you break the war forever by giving up the last of its blood?" Cole's heart raced. He looked at Varela. She stood tall now, still afraid, but stronger, waiting. She whispered, "Say, yes, I'm ready." But Cole didn't move. "Not yet." The gate repeated, "Will you end the line? Will you choose peace? At the cost of the one beside you?" Cole swallowed hard, and softly said, "I made her a promise." The trial of the gate. The air stopped moving, even the wind paused, as if the whole planet was holding its breath. The gate stood before them, glowing brighter with every passing second. Its surface shimmered like water touched by light. But there was no sound, no humming, no shaking, only a voice, soft but powerful, coming from the gate itself. "One must fall for peace to rise. Is this your final answer? Cole's hand was shaking. The mark on his palm burned brighter than ever before. He looked at Varela. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply stood still, hands at her sides, looking at him with those deep violet eyes. You gave me your word, she said quietly. And I accept the cost. Cole's voice cracked. I didn't know what the cost was. I did, she replied. He turned back to the gate. He could feel the power inside it, huge, ancient, buried beneath time. The air around it shimmered with invisible memory. It didn't care about feelings, it cared about truth, about decisions, about promises. And it was waiting. Yes, Cole said at last. Steady now. I'll finish what was started. The moment. The words left his mouth. The light exploded around them. It wasn't fire. It wasn't sound. It was memory. Images rushed into the sky like smoke. Old wars, fallen cities, alien children screaming, broken stars, empty thrones. All of it spinning. Fading. Erased. The forbidden gate was deleting history, and Varela's line was next. She stepped forward without fear. The mark on her chest began to glow, same shape as Cole's hand, the same spiral, the same triangle. She looked at him one last time. Ready. And then? The gate stopped. The light froze in midair. Everything paused. Then, something changed. A second voice spoke. But this one didn't come from the gate. It came from inside Cole. A deeper part of the thread. Not machine, not code, but choice, it said. But what if he never meant to kill? The gate pulsed once, like it was confused. Cole's mark turned gold. The voice continued, softer. What if the promise was not to destroy, but to protect? The gate began to shift. Its entire form rippled. It was thinking. It was rewriting. Varela looked around in shock. What's happening? Cole stepped beside her. I made a promise to finish this, he said, but I never said I'd do it their way. Suddenly, Cole raised his hand toward the gate. His mark burst with light. Varela's mark did the same. A beam of energy connected them, thread to thread, promise to promise. And in that moment, something ancient broke. The gate's core cracked open, not to destroy, but to reveal something new. Inside was not a weapon, not a prison, not a grave. It was a library. Rows of glowing threads, each one holding a memory of a life lost to war. Varela gasped. These were my people, my ancestors. Cole stepped forward. They weren't asking for death, they were asking for remembrance. The gate shimmered again, and the final voice spoke. The human has passed the trial. He chose peace without killing. He chose truth without silence. The light faded, the air returned, and the marks on both their bodies dimmed, but did not vanish. The bond was still there, but now it carried something else. Not a sentence. Not a sacrifice, hope. Varela sank to her knees, shaking. I thought I had to die. Cole knelt beside her. I thought I had to let you. She looked at him with eyes full of new life. You didn't break the promise. No, he said, placing his hand over hers. I rewrote it. Above them the gate stood still, quiet, open, calm. It had once judged death. Now it guarded memory and peace, because one human refused to take the easy answer and kept his word in a way no one expected. The choice no one expected. The forbidden gate was open, not in violence, not in death, but in memory. For the first time in history, it had accepted a human answer, a promise kept without blood. The war didn't end with a weapon. It ended with a choice. A different choice. The choice not to destroy. Cole and Varela stood quietly before the gate, watching the lights slowly fade into the sand. The winds of Elisara were gentle now, no longer dry and angry. They whispered through the ancient ruins like soft voices saying, It is finished. Viraya sat down near a stone. She held her arms around her knees, silent, thinking. Cole didn't say anything at first. He just sat beside her. Finally, she spoke. "You saved me. Again." "I didn't do it alone," he said. She looked at him, a little smile forming. "No, you just refused to let go." She opened her hand and looked at the mark. It still glowed, but not like before. It was softer now. Peaceful. "The thread doesn't hurt anymore," she said. Cole showed her his hand too. "Mine either," she whispered. "Maybe that's what it was always meant to do." "To link pain?" he asked. "No. To carry it together." Back on the ship, Dr. Relin stood in front of a blinking console, watching the gate through live feed. "What just happened?" a young soldier asked. Relin didn't answer at first, he just stared at the screen. Finally, he said, "That human rewrote an ancient system, a decision machine built by an entire species." He turned slowly, and he did it without violence. The galaxy started noticing. Ships from nearby systems reported seeing a new light on Elisera. Not a signal, not a weapon, but a quiet, pulsing beacon of memory. Alien councils called emergency meetings. Some were afraid, some were curious, and some whispered the same words. "The humans have changed the gate." Cole and Viraya returned to orbit 3 days later. But something felt different. The soldiers no longer stared at Viraya with fear. They looked at her with respect. And when she walked down the hallway, they stepped aside, not out of duty, but honor. She had survived. She had changed something greater than war. At a quiet dinner table, Viraya looked up at Cole. "Do you think they'll believe us?" Cole took a slow breath. "They'll believe what we show them." "And what do we show?" He smiled. "We show them that a promise isn't just words, it's action." Earth Command sent a message the next day. A high-ranking ambassador wanted to meet them. Not to punish, not to question, but to ask, "How did you make the gate choose peace?" In the meeting chamber, Viraya stood tall. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. She spoke clearly. "Our people built a machine to judge others, but we never gave it the power to change itself. That came from him." She looked at Cole. He made a promise and gave it meaning. The ambassador leaned forward. "And what does that mean for the future?" Cole answered, "It means no more silence, no more hidden trials, no more choosing peace only after war." He held up his hand. "The thread is still here, and now it carries truth." Later, in a private room, Cole looked out the window into space. Viraya stood beside him. "Will the galaxy listen?" she asked. He nodded. "Not all at once. But they'll remember, just like the gate does now." She touched his hand softly. "What happens next?" He smiled. "You choose." And she did. Viraya asked to become a messenger. Not for Earth, not for her old world, but for something new. She and Cole began to travel together. To forgotten colonies, broken worlds, lost people. They didn't bring weapons. They brought stories. Stories of a girl who begged a human not to make a terrible choice. And the human who kept his word in a way no one expected. The girl who believed in humans. Years passed, but the story didn't fade. Not like the others. This one stayed. From desert planets to floating cities, from small colonies to ancient space stations, everyone heard about the human who made a promise. And the alien girl who believed he would keep it. They called her many names. The last light, the threadbearer, the girl who chose peace. But Cole only ever called her by one, Viraya. Together they changed everything, not with power, not with armies, but with the truth. On Elisera, the forbidden gate still stood, no longer cold, no longer silent. Now it glowed gently day and night, a symbol of memory and choice. It was no longer feared, it was respected. Alien diplomats visited it to learn what had happened. Some tried to scan it, some tried to argue with it, but the gate never spoke again. It didn't need to. The answer had already been given. Viraya traveled. Across the stars, she met leaders, teachers, survivors. She didn't speak like a warrior. She spoke like someone who remembered pain and didn't want others to feel it. I once believed a promise was a sentence, she said. But I learned it can be a gift. She held up her hand. The mark still glowed just a little. Not bright, not heavy, just true. Children across the galaxy began to draw her symbol, the spiral inside the triangle. It showed up on walls, in books, in small tokens worn around the neck. Some didn't know what it meant. But those who did whispered one thing. She believed in a human. And what about Cole? He never returned to the battlefield. He didn't want to be a soldier anymore. He wanted to be a reminder, a quiet one. He stayed with Viraya, not to protect her, to walk beside her, not as a hero, but as a man who once said, "I promise," and never took it back. One day on a peaceful moon, peaceful, Viraya stood before a group of alien and human children. They asked questions about the gate, about war, about what it felt like to face the choice of death. She smiled. "It felt like standing on the edge of the world," she said. "But when I looked beside me, I saw someone who didn't run." One child raised their hand. "Were you scared?" "Yes," she said. "But not because I thought he'd leave. I was scared because I knew he'd stay." Later, the children played under the stars. Viraya watched them quietly. Cole stood beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes on the sky. "You ever think we were just lucky?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I think we were stubborn." He laughed. "That sounds like humans," she smiled. "Maybe that's why I believed in you." The night was quiet, but it felt full. Not empty, not lost, just alive. In the final scene, a museum is built on Elisara. Not a war museum, a memory hall. At the center, a tall sculpture of two figures, one human, one alien, facing each other, hands, connected by a glowing thread. Below it, a simple plaque. She begged him not to do it, but he kept his word. And because of that, we are still here. And far away on a quiet ship drifting between stars, Viraya wrote the final line of her story. The promise was never about the end. It was about not letting go. Even when every voice said you should. She signed it. Viraya of the Thread, the girl who believed in humans.